I'm always fascinated about Africa. The story of Africa is a personal story. It's something that flows from the depth of my being. When I speak of Africa, I don't speak as an academic or as an intellectual. I speak of Africa because I breathe it, I smell it, everything about me is Africa. And so I speak with passion about Africa, without any bias, without any apologies. And I am proudly African, without any apologies. And today, let's take a look at something different, kind of a somber look on Africa, rethinking what we call the developmental aid in Sub-Saharan Africa. I'll begin by asking a couple of questions. For over 50 years now, Africa have received roughly $50 billion a year on foreign aid. The question then is, when we go overseas, go to the train stations, go to Amsterdam station, go to Den Haag, go to London, you see pictures of babies from Africa, asking for help. You see pictures of carnage and war and famine, of diseases. You see all this kind of carnage, kind of a pornography of violence. And you wonder, if Africa has received $50 billion a year for over 50 years, why do we still have this kind of pictures? At the airport, if you're checking in, they'll slide in some of those flyers into your docket saying, oh, the aid, NGOs, this and this. The question then is, what has happened for 50 years? And then we have to ask ourselves, if we've been giving 50 billion every year for 50 years, and it's not working, why do we still need to do it? Why do we continue the same story? And I fall back on African cultural history. I love to tell stories. An African he-goat once called the three kids a he-goat. He said, come, let me ask you for wisdom. Let's talk about the future. And he called the three kids. I said, the first child, my son, how many times will something happen to you? Would you have something happen to you before you learn a lesson? And the first child said, oh, Daddy, 2 times. I said, okay, well done. He dismissed him. And he called the second child and said, how many times will something happen to you before you learn a lesson? And he said, well, just 1 time. Proving that he's smart. Oh, 1 time, only 1 time. And I will learn a lesson. And then he called the third one. How many times will something happen to you before you learn a lesson? He said, no, Daddy, it won't happen to me. I will learn from others. The question then is, developmental aid in Africa have gotten certain relationship. We've had that experience. Not only do we need to learn from others, we've also had experience 1, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times for 50 years. Why do we still continue to recycle the same challenges? And why do we still have a picture of Africa? When you talk about Africa, you think of this Afro-pessimism, the negative image of poverty, of children dying of diseases and everything. Is the air in Africa different? Is the land in Africa different? Are the people different? If Europe, after the Second World War, could only manage with $13 billion to rebuild Europe through the Marshall Plan, Africa has received for the past 50 years almost $1 trillion. And why are we still the same way? Why is that picture, that image? And so today we're going to have a conversation. We're going to check out what is at stake, what is happening, and why is it that the same story is being retold? Can we move forward? Can we ask a different question? Is it the question or the solution? First of all, let's talk about foreign aid and developmental aid. There are certain assumptions when we talk about developmental aid. There are certain assumptions. The first one is that foreign aid or developmental aid is a kind of a handout where foreign Western governments, and now China, dole out money to African countries. They just, oh, we go to the ABN AMRO, give us 5 billion, and then you go and dump it in Sierra Leone. That's the first assumption. It's a kind of a free handout. That's the first assumption we take of foreign aid. If I ask the audience now, they say, yeah, that is foreign aid. That's the first assumption we have. Second one is that foreign aid is always about improving people's lives. Oh, yeah, we're going to improve people's lives. That is second assumption. The third one is that the objective of foreign aid, the government, is honest with the immediate needs of the people. What I mean is that, yes, the foreign aid, whatever aid they're having, is actually the need of the people. They're speaking to the need of the people. And then another one is that foreign aid is about poverty alleviation. It's not about poverty alleviation. These are the assumptions. When we talk about foreign aid, this is what comes to our mind. This is what comes to our consciousness, and this is what we know, probably in the universities, in high schools, everything about foreign aid. And no wonder you go sometimes, you see during a protest, people say, no, stop foreign aid, spend the money in our own countries, stop helping them. You are spending 3 billion in so and so countries, we don't want it, why don't you help us? So these are criticisms, because the assumption is that it is free money given to other countries. Free money. Now, let's take a look at the reality. We have to ask, first of all, what are the reality? First of all, foreign aid is not free. That's the first thing we have to know. It's not free. It's always conditional upon donors' interest. That's what people do not understand, that foreign aid is never for free. I was speaking to a colleague of mine, a friend actually, who was for the EU commissioner. He said, Michael, no, we don't give you people foreign aid for free at all. We don't. There's always a carrot and a stick. Before government of Belgium wants to give, or another government to give, let's say 50 million to Ghana or Nigeria, there is a condition attached to it. There is necessary conditions attached to it. It's either you change policy, you change this kind of thing, or there's going to be some interest upon that. So foreign aid is never really for free. It can be in terms of monetary compensation, it can be in terms of investment opportunities, it can be in terms of control the migrants in your society. It can be many things. It can also see that the state itself is dependent on the Western government, depending on what the donor interest say. That's one. Second one, it's not always about poverty reduction. So you see, foreign aid is to go to Sierra Leone or Nigeria to save some child who's down of hunger. No. It's also about strategic interests for influence and regional clout. Okay, we're going to have some things. We're going to give you money, but we're going to vote for us in the UN. You're going to support our policies in Western Europe. You're going to really help us and this and this. So it's not always about poverty alleviation. It's strategic interests. So we come to a government and say, okay, you government B, we're going to give you this money, but you're going to do this and this and this for us. We're going to buy this influence. This is what happened for the past 30, 40 years in international relations. This is how international relations works. Of course, it's also primarily market-driven. Foreign aid is primarily market-driven. So, let's assume Netherlands wants to give money to, let's assume, Rwanda. They go to IMF and say, look, we're going to give certain amount of money. IMF tells them, okay, let's do. You're going to give them foreign aid or whatever the case may be. What is the status of the IMF, of this country? Okay, before we give you money, we have to do structural adjustment program. In Netherlands, I know that Netherlands, there's free education for everybody in elementary school at least, and the secondary school to some extent. But they will go to Rwanda and say, no, before we give you foreign aid, privatize. Privatize the post office. Privatize everything so that we can know that you are worthy of receiving this kind of aid. Otherwise, the IMF will say, no, we don't certify you. We are not worthy of receiving such aid because you cannot manage it. So we give you aid, but you make education inaccessible. So we give you government-to-government aid. Now, when I talk about this, first of all, let me clarify. When I talk about foreign aid, there are different kinds of foreign aid. There's what we call humanitarianism, of course. This is general. There's also emergency aid. Scholars have talked about it. I didn't make the distinction. There's also government-to-government. So when I talk about in general, I'm trying to kind of scratch. I'm not trying to speak for the whole of Africa. I'm not worthy to speak for the whole of Africa. I speak through my own experience and encounters in Africa as an African who have thought about these things and reflected about it. And so, well, we privatize them before we give you something like that. So you see, well, strings attached. So this is as part of it. And of course, some scholars have suggested that every year, African governments pay back at as much as $20 billion in loan repayments also attached to foreign aid. This is the reality of foreign aid. It's not for free. It's not always about poverty reduction, because this is the picture we get. If you go to the train stations, you see a picture of a child crying, or a poor black woman tilling the ground, and all those things. This is the image we have. And then this is the image that is used to mobilize emotive support, to touch our heart, our innermost self. Oh, people are dying in that country. Oh, let's go and save them. Let's go missionary, let's go and save them. And then the reality then is different from the picture being presented on all those international scenes, because the reality is different from when the money comes and how it is done, and then who is giving it as well. So these are the reality. And how do this combine? These have consequences. They have consequences. First of all is normalization of poverty. Now, many people, I didn't say this for the first time, I'm not the first person to talk about this. Normalization of poverty, of course, that everybody's poor. Now, consider again, $1 trillion have been spent on Africa on foreign aid for over 50 years. Okay. Now, imagine that 50 billion is given every year to Africa. Why are people still poor? Why are we still doing the same thing? Why do we still dump money if it is not working? Normalization of poverty. Of course, again, it's pornography of poverty and violence, because to get money, you have to paint the most difficult and ugly and very depressing carnage. Africa is beautiful. If you've never been to Africa, I encourage you to go to Africa. What you see in the movies and in all those adverts is completely different from how the people might be poor, but they're happy. And of course, again, this kind of thing is what mobilizes our mind to go and help. Of course, regularization of dependency and alienation. I was speaking to a couple of students in Uganda some years ago. And the argument was, what are you going to study in the university? I'm looking for a job that will help me get access to work with the NGOs. I said, well, what about studying philosophy or English or mathematics? I know the NGOs, they pay more than this work. Why would I waste my time? And of course, a friend of mine, very brilliant professor left academia to go and head an NGO group. I said, Michael, I make 10 times more than you will ever make in this. And this is what is the dream of the youth now, is to work for the NGOs now. So would you want to be an elementary school teacher? Or would you want to teach mathematics? Want to teach history or philosophy? Of course. You want to work for those people that you're going to make a lot of money. So this is regularization of dependency. And of course, you see that it's circulated because alienation steps in now. First of all, that is double alienation. The first one is, first of all, you become something else. So the future is dependent on that aid. So you see many countries now making their budgets on the anticipation of how much money they will receive in foreign aid. So that's already undermining legitimation of that state. Secondly, as an individual, what is the future? What is the prospect if all we have to do is to work in order to fit into this kind of mindset that the future is dependent on that? So what you study. So does it mean that in 20 years' time, where are we going to have the teachers of mathematics? The elementary people are going to teach literature in English. We're going to teach history. We're going to teach chemistry and physics. We're going to teach geography. We're going to teach social sciences. How are we going to get them? So this kind of course, another major part is institutionalization of corruption. How does it work? So that's kind of moral dilemma. We want to help. The government said no. So you negotiate with the government to give the government some money. What do? They recycle the money back to Europe. So it's okay. I give you $100. Okay. By the end of the day, 70 is spent. Well, first of all, the people who are paid, most of them are expatriates, so expats who come to Africa. So the foreigners, the Western people, because when the foreign aid comes, there's attachment, a clause always, so that they bring their own people to work there as well. So they bring their own people, they pay them salary that's much more than they will ever pay the Africans who work with them. That's number one. And of course, they're helping you, but the money is also recycling through corruption, but also through the administrative bloated budget on the side of the NGOs. The case of East Timor is not in Africa was very, very interesting. That most of the budget, 80%, 70% of the budget is spent on overhead costs. It's not just East Timor, in Africa. So we have 100 million mapped out to go and solve malaria problem in Timbuktu. But then we have 100 million, but 90 million is to pay overhead costs of our own European workers before we go, and then we are helping. Okay, we are helping. And then we use it and sell. So you see how the cycle continues. And so these are the challenges. These are the challenges. And then the question then is, if this is the case, then why do we keep doing the same thing over and over again? We have to break the vicious cycle. Again, I am grateful. Personally, I'm grateful for foreign aid. I am not here to attack people who have wonderful time, who have made wonderful donations, who really care about Africa. People who help are good people, you know. People who help are good people. So I need to recognize that people who want to help are not the villains. The question I want to ask is, yes, we want help, but can we reset the way we help in such a way that can be both useful to you, who is helping us, and us as well? So it can become useful, so that we can be free from the chain of dependency. We can be free from the chain of not being able to help ourselves. How do we do that? How do we break this chain? That is the challenge and question, the conversation we want to have. Not that helping is bad, but if you're going to help, how do we do it? How do we do it? The first one, I think, is you have to understand when you negotiate. Let me give an example. The EU deals, for example, migration and African governments. The EU, European Union is, okay, we're going to negotiate to help Africans stop coming to Europe. But they understood that African states is not the same with European states. So they go negotiate. We'll give you this and this. What do? Keep the people inside and we'll give you money. Of course, they'll go buy weapons. Like Nigeria, of course. Example is Nigeria. They'll buy money and the gun is put on the civilians. So Nigeria becomes like a geographical prison yard where the function of the state is only to keep people inside. So the state exists so that people remain inside. Your own legitimacy within the state is that you stay inside and not escape. A geographical prison yard. So when we do that, attention to context becomes very, very important. I'm going to give 2 examples about context. People want to help. Here are 2 stories for you. There's one in Nigeria, wonderful people. They came and they said, oh, these people who come, the donors are wonderful people, great people. And they came and they said, you know what? They need water. Oh, we went to their place and they have a stream. And this stream is not so clean. So you know what? We're going to go back to Europe, or to America and Europe, and we're going to bring the best engineers, and we're going to dig a borehole for them. And so they did. They brought the best engineers, and they went to that remote area. They dug the best borehole. Wonderful borehole, state-of-the-art borehole. Of course, it functioned for 2-3 months. But after 3 months, the engineers left. They went back to their own countries. The borehole functioned and then, of course, stopped functioning. First, there's nobody who knows anything about the borehole. Secondly, nobody knows how to operate it. An expensive borehole worth millions of dollars went into disrepute. It just collapsed like that, rusted, because nobody could manage it. Why? Because the people decided that what the people need was water without conversation with them. Another example is what happened in East Africa some time ago. Somebody said, well, you know what? There was one of these celebrities who went and visited the camps, the refugee camps, and found out that they have no toilets. So what did they do? Everybody began to say, toilets. They began to build toilets all over. Every NGOs began to build toilet, because they saw it that the toilet is what they're missing, without having a conversation with the context of experience. They don't have the conversation, talk to the people, listen to them. So this is part of the way of alienating the people. And this is how, not that intention to help is wonderful, but then how do we do the helping? How do we do the helping? That is the question. I am not here to criticize those who help, but how do we do the help so we don't have to recycle over and over again? And so my proposal, first of all, is bypass the government. That's number one. I says bypass the government and stop throwing money on Africa. Stop throwing money. Monetary aid doesn't do anything. It has not helped. If we have been giving money to Africa, I'm not the first person to say this. There have been other scholars who have made this argument, and I support this claim. I'm only here is to amplify it. I don't think I'm saying anything spectacular. I don't think so. I'm saying anything completely new, but I'm trying to amplify to make it louder so that we will hear. Stop giving money to African government. That's not what we need. So there are two ways. Foreign direct investment is one, without the government, but also human investment. In also, I would say, a person is a person through other people. What this means, a human being is a human being through other people, means that the more you invest in human beings, that is the best way you can train and develop a society. Education and human investment. Skill transfer. Substitute monetary aid with accessibility to market. Okay, I give another example here. Let's assume that, what do you know? I come to, let's say, I go to Burkina Faso. Okay, I give an example of a Chinese investor. Okay, a couple of guys who are very good in shoemaking. They can make shoemaking. They know how to make shoe. What do? I say, okay, we're going to take you back to China. We'll train you how to make shoes, and you learn how to make shoe. And they did learn how to make very, very good shoes. That is standard. Very standard, like European style or whatever standard. This is something you can do. This is something possible. Is it farmers? No, train farmers. Skill transfer. Monetary aid have not done anything. It's only going to make the conversation more and more difficult. Bottom-up approach of development. Deal with the people. Ask them, what do they want? Don't decide in London, in Amsterdam, in Paris, and it's okay, we make a case. This is what you need, and we're going to impose it upon you. No. Nigeria is not Ghana. Ghana is not Kenya. Kenya is not Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone is not Liberia. They have different stories. They have different experiences. They have different problems and needs. And we should, let me use the Latin word, sentire cum Africa. Think with Africa. Think with Africa. Think with Africa. And Africa youth, 50% of African population is under 19 years old. Very vibrant youth who want to work. All they need is to work. And so please, again, my plea is not that we abandon helping, but how do we do it? The question is, what is the question? What is the solution? We should ask the right question, but with the right solution. We have the good solution, but we're asking the wrong question. So we should make the wrong question, go with the right question, match the good solution. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.